Stories number 1, AITA for not letting my stepsister borrow my wedding dress. Me, F23, got married to my husband about a year ago. It was wonderful and probably the happiest day of my life. My family was involved with everything, and I was delighted by it, including my stepfather, who at first I had a somewhat rocky relationship with, but I grew to appreciate him. His daughter, F26, is an entire different story. We can't get along. I've tried, and I'm sure she also has, but it's not about being different. It's because she has always had very similar taste as me. We used to fight about our clothes, our toys, and so on. She has a relationship with a man whom I've got to know maybe 3 or 4 times. She announced her relationship with him during my wedding, which annoyed me at first, but I let it go since it was only a 20-second PSA, and became engaged just 4 months after that. Now, she has been planning her wedding, and I've tried to help as much as I can since I already had most contacts fresh. She plans to marry a day after Christmas, so I thought everything was set and ready to go. On Saturday, she calls me crying, saying that her wedding dress wouldn't arrive on time since she had some changes done. For some context, no one knows how this dress looks because she wanted to keep it a surprise for everyone. Per her own words. I tried to comfort her and I told her I knew some cute boutiques who had nice wedding dresses ready for her date. She cries harder, telling me she didn't want any cheap dress. I tried to calm her down once more before telling her I would call my stepdad to see what we could do. Before I could finish that sentence, she says out of the blue, "Can I wear your dress?" I didn't respond because I didn't know how to. She goes on, explaining that it would make things less troubling, how she's the same size as me, and how much she loved it the second she saw it on me. I don't know what possessed me to simply say no and hang up the phone. I've received multiple calls from her fiancé, and my stepdad, who I did respond to. He pleaded to me to let her borrow my wedding dress, just like when we were kids. I tried to explain to him that my wedding dress was very special to me, and I wouldn't feel comfortable letting anyone else in it, unless it was my decision. He got super angry with me and hung up. My messages have been exploding with my stepsister, her soon-to-be husband, and my stepdad telling me how horrible I am for being so selfish. I know how my stepsister is. I know how dramatic and over-the-top she can be when she doesn't get her way. But there's a part of me that feels awful for not letting her wear it since it's just a dress and it would make her so happy. But there's that other part of me that remembers how my husband, my mom, and I struggled to save for it because it was my dream dress, and I don't want to share something so personal with her. Should I just let her have it, just so things don't escalate? Some of comments. Commenter. NTA. I'm calling shenanigans on your stepsister's part. She probably had her eye on your dress since day one, probably commissioned a similar dress, if she even did, hence the surprise, and planned to use your dress as a backup if hers didn't show up in time. Reply. I never wanted to assume things, but this is where I'm at too. I'll talk to her tomorrow and try figure things out. Update 2. Well, that happened. I arrived at said coffee shop just in time. She took half an hour to get there. I talked as gently as I could with her, explaining how I didn't want her to wear my wedding dress and why, since it was so emotionally attached to me. She went absolutely nuts. She called me a selfish cow, telling me how I'm the most horrible human ever. I tried to calm things down until I just couldn't do it anymore. I knew this was a possibility, so as soon as she started crying, I pulled out her wedding invitation and gave it back to her. I told her I wouldn't be attending the wedding, but I hoped it all went perfectly. Her voice couldn't get louder at this point. She threatened to come to my house and take it from me. I simply left the coffee shop without saying another word, and now I'm home. Update post, per my last post. My F24 stepsister F27 got married last December. She asked for my wedding dress after not wanting to even look for one herself. I said no. I stood my ground and I didn't go to her wedding. Fast forward to last month, she and her husband have separated. She says they are only taking a break. I begun to rebuild my relationship with her. I took time and effort to find a way to talk to her and even go out in double dates with his husband and mines. That went really well, up until the break she took with her hubby. She stopped talking to me altogether, ghosted me when I wanted to plan stuff, and I figured she only needed some time. Up until she calls me again, in the middle of August. She wants to come over to my house and talk. I genuinely felt happy to have her come over. since my stepdad kept pressuring to finally make peace. She comes over, we have coffee, and she asks to see my closet since she was going out on a date and had nothing to wear. I thought this was full circle moment for both us, so I said yes. We looked through my clothes and I picked something that went well with her. She said thanks and put the outfit in a bag she brought with her, and left. Some days pass, and as I was cleaning my own closet, I find that the spot where my wedding dress was hanging from was empty. It was in a garment bag and it was there since I don't want it to wrinkle so bad, since the fabric was a little fragile. I freaked out, searched for it everywhere. I realized the last time I saw it was before my stepsister came. I called her and asked sincerely in case I was wrong. She got extremely defensive and hung up the phone. I called my stepdad. He was angry at me for thinking she could do that. Later, my stepdad calls again. He got my stepsister to tell the truth. She stole it while I was looking for an outfit for her. He tells me to calm down and to resolve this like adults, but I called her again and simply said to prepare her lawyers. This created massive drama within my family, and I was too livid to acknowledge it until my mom called me. Now, I'm thinking I may be crossing a line, but that dress means too much for me. I saved every penny I got and it truly was the dress of my dreams. I'm scared to find out if she did anything to it. AITA for suing my stepsister? Some of comments. Commenter, how does someone steal a wedding dress and OP doesn't notice? Reply, I wouldn't say my closet is too big, but it is a walk-in one. There were plenty of times I was looking through my shirts with my back against her. Commenter, not all wedding dresses are big and poofy. My own wedding dress rolls up about the same size as a pair of standard jeans. I'm not saying that this post is true. I'm just saying that assumptions about garment size aren't something to base a rejection of truth on. Reply, it really wasn't puffy. Without all the accessories, it would be a really simple, aligned dress. But I loved it. Commenter, why did she steal a wedding dress for a wedding that happened 8 months ago? Reply, that's what I'm trying to figure out. To get back at me, I assume? Commenter, it's been days at least. Chances are the dress has already been altered red. Ruined for the sister now anyway. So, just filing the report and getting the dress back isn't enough. Reply, I'm extremely scared and heartbroken of this possibility. OOP comments later that day, thank you everyone for the kind comments. I'll try talking tomorrow with her again. If things go wrong, I'll go to the police. I'll update as soon as I can. Stories. Number 2. My classmate cut me off after finding out I'm married and now he's acting like I wronged him, so I'm almost 30 and recently went back to university. Life didn't exactly go in a straight line for me. I worked a few jobs after high school, did some community college classes, but nothing stuck. Then I got married, settled into life with my husband, and only now have I been able to finally go back and pursue my degree full-time. It feels good to be in school again, even if I am a bit older than most of the people in my classes. For context, my husband's name is Daniel. We've been married for 4 years, together for almost 7. He's been really supportive of me going back to school, even though it means our schedules clash and we don't see each other as much during the week. Anyway, this semester I'm taking an upper-level computer science course, which has been rough because I don't have the same foundation most of the younger students have. They grew up coding in high school or did robotics clubs. I didn't. I was feeling behind, so I was really relieved when this guy from class, let's call him Tyler, offered to study with me. He's maybe 22 or 23, definitely younger, but he seemed approachable and nice. It didn't feel weird at all. Just classmates helping each other out. We started texting, but it was totally casual. Literally just, what time do you want to meet? Or, can you explain this assignment again? No emojis. No flirting. Nothing. He wasn't giving me any signals that he saw me as anything other than another student who needed help, and I wasn't thinking in those terms either. Honestly, I was just happy to have a study partner. Being almost 30 in a classroom full of early 20s students makes you feel like a bit of an outsider, so it was nice to feel like I was making a friend in class. We decided to meet at his apartment one afternoon so he could walk me through some things I was struggling with. I showed up. He was friendly, we got into the work, and everything seemed totally normal. After about an hour, though, things shifted. He put his pencil down, leaned back, and out of nowhere asked me, "So, what's your relationship status?" It caught me off guard. I didn't think anything of it in a romantic sense. I just answered honestly, "Oh, I'm married." The look on his face immediately changed. He went stiff, his tone got cold, and he said something like, well, I don't think we should do this anymore." I was confused. I asked, "Do what? Study?" And he just nodded, but with this weird, clipped attitude, and then he told me I should probably go home. It was super awkward. I packed up my stuff, thanked him anyway, and left, not really knowing what the hell had just happened. Later that night, I tried to text him something simple like, "Thanks for explaining earlier," just being polite. The message didn't even deliver. He had blocked me. I thought maybe he'd cool down or I'd get some kind of explanation, but nope. The next time we had class, he wouldn't even look at me. He's been actively ignoring me ever since. If I walk into the room and he's sitting there, he'll keep his eyes glued to his laptop. If the professor asks us to pair up for something, he makes sure to find someone else immediately, so he doesn't end up stuck with me. And what's worse, when I do catch him glancing my way, he gives me this look like I've done something offensive, like he's disgusted with me. I honestly don't understand what I did wrong here. I wasn't flirting, I wasn't leading him on, I didn't lie about being married. It just never came up in conversation before that moment. He never asked, and I didn't think, "By the way, I have a husband," needed to be announced the second I meet someone new, especially when we're literally just classmates. Now I feel uncomfortable in class, like I have to tiptoe around him. I've caught myself wondering if other people in class noticed the change, if he said something to them, because sometimes I feel like I'm getting side glances. Maybe that's in my head, but the tension is real. The worst part is I actually feel guilty, even though logically I don't think I should. Like, should I have told him up front that I was married the second we exchanged numbers? Should I have been more obvious that I wasn't interested in him outside of schoolwork? But at the same time, why would I assume a study partner has ulterior motives until proven otherwise? My husband Daniel thinks the guy just had a crush on me, assumed our studying meant something else, and then felt led on when he found out I was married. Which is insane, because I never gave him a reason to think I was single or interested. Daniel told me not to waste energy on it, but it's hard not to feel uncomfortable every time I sit down in that class. The whole situation is so bizarre. I keep asking myself, am I actually in the wrong for not mentioning my marriage earlier? Or is Tyler just being immature because I didn't fit into whatever expectation he had in his head? All I wanted was someone to help me figure out programming loops, and now I'm basically the villain in his eyes. So I figured I'd come back with an update because a lot has happened since I posted, and it's been a ride. After I wrote all that, things in class didn't exactly smooth over. If anything, the weird tension between me and Tyler got worse. We had a group project coming up that was worth a huge chunk of our grade, and of course the professor decided to assign groups instead of letting us pick. Guess who ended up in my group? Yep. Me, Tyler, and two other classmates, a girl named Sarah and a guy named Chris. When we got split up, Sarah gave me a sympathetic look, like she knew it was going to be awkward, and Chris seemed oblivious. Tyler, on the other hand, physically shifted his chair so it was angled away from me, like a little kid refusing to sit next to their sibling at the dinner table. I could feel myself getting stressed just thinking about how we were going to survive weeks of working together. During our first group meeting, Tyler would only address Sarah or Chris. If I made a suggestion, he'd act like I hadn't spoken, and then repeat my idea word for word a few minutes later, directing it to them instead of me. At one point I said, "That's literally what I just said," and he just shrugged. Sarah gave me this awkward half-smile, like she felt bad for me but didn't want to get in the middle. It was infuriating. I tried not to let it show, but it felt like he was punishing me for existing. And for what? Being married? Not declaring it the second we exchanged numbers? It was so childish. Things came to a head one afternoon when we were meeting in the library. I was explaining a section of the project I'd worked on, and Tyler cut me off mid-sentence to say, "Well, maybe if you spent less time playing house you'd understand this better." I swear the room went silent. Chris's eyes went wide, and Sarah snapped her head toward him like she couldn't believe he'd said that out loud. I froze. I felt my face go hot, and a part of me wanted to just pack up and leave right there. But another part of me was so tired of being treated like I'd done something wrong that I shot back, Maybe if you didn't act like a bitter middle schooler every time you find out a woman doesn't want you, you'd have more friends to study with." Sarah actually laughed under her breath. Chris cleared his throat and was like, "Okay, let's just focus on the project." Tyler looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. He didn't say another word to me for the rest of the session, but the damage was done. That night, I told Daniel about it. He was livid. He wanted me to go straight to the professor and report Tyler for being unprofessional and hostile. At first, I resisted because I didn't want to make a bigger deal out of it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I shouldn't have to put up with that crap just to finish a class. So I sent the professor an email explaining what had been happening, including the comment Tyler made in the library. To my surprise, the professor actually took it seriously. He scheduled a meeting with me and then later with the group. When we all sat down, the professor basically laid it out. This was supposed to be a collaborative class, and if there was any personal conflict interfering with work, it had to stop. Tyler looked pissed but didn't say much. He muttered something like, "Fine, whatever." After that, he toned it down a little. He still wouldn't speak directly to me unless absolutely necessary, but he stopped with the petty digs. We managed to get through the project without total disaster, mostly because Sarah low-key took over as the buffer between us. When we finally turned it in, I felt like I'd run a marathon. Since then, class has been tolerable. Tyler still ignores me, but I honestly don't care anymore. If anything, I think people noticed how childish he was being. Sarah and I actually became friends through the whole mess, and she told me privately that she thought Tyler had a crush on me and was embarrassed when he found out I was married, so he lashed out instead of just being an adult about it. It still blows my mind that a grown man in his 20s could act like that just because a classmate is married. But I'm glad I stood up for myself, and I'm glad I looped the professor in. Daniel was right. It wasn't my responsibility to coddle someone else's fragile ego. If nothing else, the whole situation taught me not to second-guess myself so much. I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not going to let someone convince me otherwise just because they're sulking. Well, semester's officially over, and I figured I'd give you all the final update on this whole saga with Tyler. The group project ended up getting a solid grade. A, which I'll take, considering how dysfunctional the dynamics were. When we got the grade back, Sarah shot me a little smile and whispered, "We basically carried it." She wasn't wrong. Chris did his part, but Tyler barely contributed anything beyond the bare minimum. He'd show up, throw out a few half-hearted comments, and then sit on his phone. The irony was almost funny, considering how he acted like I was the one holding us back. After the project wrapped, I honestly thought things would settle down. But nope. Tyler kept up his ignoring act in class, to the point where it became kind of a joke among the others. Like if I'd answer a professor's question, he'd suddenly need to shuffle papers or take a drink of water, just so he didn't have to look like he was listening to me. I stopped caring. If anything, I leaned into it. If he wanted to waste his energy pretending I didn't exist, that was his problem. The final straw with him came during our last week of class. We had to do peer evaluations for the group project, and apparently Tyler wrote some nonsense about how I was difficult to work with and distracted by personal matters. Luckily, Sarah and Chris both rated me highly, and even mentioned how much work I'd done, so the professor basically disregarded Tyler's little tantrum. Still, it was petty to the very end. On the last day of class, after our final exam, people were hanging around outside the lecture hall, saying goodbyes. I was chatting with Sarah when Tyler walked by. For a second, I thought maybe he'd soften up now that the semester was over. But nope. He gave me this cold look, like I'd personally ruined his life, and kept walking without saying a word. Sarah muttered, "What a baby," under her breath, and we both laughed. That was the last I saw of him. Now that I'm on the other side of it, I've been thinking about the whole situation. At first, I really did second-guess myself. I wondered if maybe I'd done something wrong by not leading with, "Hi, I'm married," when I first met him. But looking back, that's ridiculous. No one owes anyone a detailed rundown of their relationship status just to study together. He created a story in his head, got embarrassed when reality didn't match, and decided to make me the villain. I think what frustrated me most wasn't just his behavior, but how familiar it felt. Women deal with this all the time, being punished for someone else's misplaced assumptions. If you're polite and friendly, it gets taken as interest. If you don't disclose your personal life immediately, you're leading someone on. And if you set a boundary, you're suddenly cold or difficult. The silver lining is that I came out of it stronger. I didn't cave to his pettiness. I stood up for myself when he crossed the line, and I looped in the professor instead of letting it slide. Daniel's been supportive the whole way, and honestly, this whole thing brought us closer. He joked that next time I start a new class, he's going to make me wear a shirt that says "Happily Married," just to avoid drama. As for Sarah, she's become a real friend, and we've already made plans to take another class together next semester. She told me she admired how I handled things, which meant a lot, because there were plenty of moments I felt like I was barely holding it together. So, final thoughts? Tyler can keep sulking. I've got better things to focus on than someone who can't handle basic social interactions without turning them into a soap opera. If this is how he reacts to finding out a classmate has a spouse, I can't imagine how he'll function in the real world when faced with actual adult problems. At the end of the day, I did nothing wrong. I don't regret a single thing I said or did. And honestly, I'm proud of myself for not letting him drag me down to his level. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is let people stew in their own immaturity while you move forward with your life. Stories number 3. My girlfriend thinks me working from home means I should be the housekeeper. So, my girlfriend and I just recently took the plunge and moved in together. I'm 29, she's 28, and we'd been dating a little over 2 years before signing the lease. It felt like the right time. We talked about it for a while, and when her lease was ending on her old apartment, we decided it made sense financially and logistically to find a place together. Now, for context, I work remotely full-time as a software engineer. I've been fully remote since 2020. My hours are technically 9 to 5, but realistically, I'm often tied up with meetings, deadlines, and projects that bleed into the evenings. My girlfriend, on the other hand, works in marketing and has a hybrid job that currently leans more toward in-office. She commutes downtown every morning, does her 8 to 9 hours, then drives home in traffic. Here's where things got complicated. Once we moved in together, she started to assume that because I work from home, I should also take on most of the household chores. At first, it wasn't really explicit. She'd say things like, "Hey, could you toss in a load of laundry since you'll be home?" Or, "You'll be around when the delivery comes, right? Can you take care of it?" Those felt reasonable and I didn't mind. But slowly, the asks became expectations. Suddenly, I was the one unloading the dishwasher every morning, vacuuming in the afternoons, handling dinner prep, managing groceries, scrubbing the bathroom, and taking out the trash. If I asked her to handle something, her response would often be, "I just got home from the office. I'm exhausted." Which, yeah, I get it. Commuting is tiring. But I'm not exactly on vacation all day, either. The breaking point came last week. She made dinner, which I appreciate, but then left all the dishes piled in the sink. Normally, I'd clean up, but I was drained from a brutal day of meetings and debugging. I told her, "Hey, I'm wiped. Can you do the dishes tonight?" She gave me this look like I'd just grown a second head and said, "Seriously? I cooked? You're home all day. You can handle the dishes." That was when I finally snapped a bit. I told her point blank that working from home doesn't mean I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. My job is still a job, and just because I'm physically here doesn't mean I'm available to scrub pans between Zoom calls. I told her I'm happy to share chores equally, but I'm not going to be her live-in housekeeper. She didn't take it well. She said I was being selfish and dismissive of how hard her commute is. She argued that because I save time by not driving to work, I should make up the difference by handling more around the house. I told her commuting is part of her job, not mine, and I'm not responsible for balancing that out with extra cleaning. The whole thing escalated into a fight where she accused me of being lazy and not supportive, while I argued that she was being unfair and taking advantage of the fact that my office is 10 feet from our kitchen. We went to bed that night not speaking, and since then, there's been this weird tension in the air. To be clear, I do chores. I vacuum, clean the bathroom, handle laundry half the time, and cook when it's my turn. I don't expect her to do everything, but her expectation seems to be that because I work from home, I should automatically do 70–80% of the household stuff, while she contributes less because she drives to an office. The way I see it, we both work full-time jobs. Just because mine happens to be at home doesn't mean it's less demanding. I'm still mentally exhausted at the end of the day, and honestly, sometimes more so because the line between work and home is so blurred. It's not like I'm lounging on the couch all day watching Netflix. This past weekend, we sat down and tried to talk about it calmly. I suggested a chore chart or some kind of system where things are divided equally so it doesn't feel lopsided. She rolled her eyes and said, "We're adults, not kids. I shouldn't need a chart to get you to pull your weight." I told her that's exactly the problem. She thinks I'm not pulling my weight, but in reality, I feel like I'm doing most of it. At one point, she even said, "Well, if you don't like it, maybe I should just move out and get my own place again." Which felt like a low blow considering how big of a step moving in together was for both of us. Now I'm stuck, wondering if this is a fundamental incompatibility. Like, if she really believes that my remote job is inherently less real than hers, how do we move forward? I love her, and I wanted this to be the start of building a life together. But I don't want to spend the next however many years resenting each other over dishes and laundry. My parents, when I asked them, were split. My dad, who also used to work long hours at an office, kind of sided with her, saying, "You do save time and energy by not commuting, so it wouldn't kill you to do a little more." My mom, on the other hand, said, "A full-time job is a full-time job, no matter where you do it. Don't let her turn you into the maid just because you work from home." So yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't think I'm being unreasonable for refusing to do all the chores, but she clearly feels like I am. So, things definitely didn't just magically resolve after I posted the first time. If anything, the argument about chores became this constant low-grade tension that leaked into every corner of our home. You know when you can tell someone is doing things angrily? Like slamming the cupboard just a little too hard, or setting down a glass with way more force than necessary? That's been the vibe around here. A few days after the dishes fight, she came home from work and immediately went to the sink, where I had stacked the dishes from my lunch. She looked at me and said, "So I guess you're just going to leave these here until I take care of them?" I told her I was planning to clean up after I wrapped a late afternoon meeting. She sighed in that way that's meant to communicate. A whole novel of disappointment without saying anything. It's like she sees any mess during the day as proof that I'm not pulling my weight. I pointed out that if she made breakfast before leaving, those dishes would also be sitting in the sink until one of us handled them later. But apparently when it's me, the assumption is I've been ignoring it while lounging around. We finally decided to sit down again and hash it out, this time with pen and paper. I suggested we literally write out every chore we could think of. Cooking, dishes, vacuuming, laundry, trash, bathrooms, groceries, cat litter. We have 2 cats, by the way. Even smaller stuff like wiping down counters. I wanted to get a realistic picture of what we were each doing, because honestly, I was starting to feel gaslit into thinking I was lazy. So we listed it all, and then put initials next to who usually did what. When we were finished, even she had to admit it looked closer to 50-50 than she thought. Her counter-argument? "Yeah, but you should be doing more because you're home." There it was again. I asked her to explain exactly what she meant by that. She said commuting drains her energy and cuts into her free time, so it's only fair I compensate. I told her I understood that commuting sucks, but her job chose her schedule, just like mine chose mine. It's not my responsibility to make her evenings easier just because her company won't go hybrid full-time. She started crying at one point, saying she felt like I didn't appreciate how hard she worked and how much she sacrificed to keep up with her career. That was tough, because I do appreciate it. I told her I respect the hell out of her ambition and drive, but that doesn't mean my career isn't demanding too. Here's where it got interesting. She admitted she always pictured herself with a partner who'd make life easier for her when she got home, because that's how it was when she was a kid. Her dad worked from home and basically did everything around the house while her mom worked insane hours at a law firm. She said she always thought that was the model of a supportive partnership. That gave me a lot to think about because to her, this wasn't just about dirty dishes. It was about what she envisioned a relationship should look like. And to me, that's the scary part, because if our visions of fair are fundamentally different, I don't know if we can find middle ground. We agreed to a temporary compromise. I'd take on a bit more of the daily upkeep stuff, dishes, vacuuming, litter if she'd step up more on weekends when we both have the same amount of free time. She said she'd try, but honestly, I don't know if she's actually on board or just said that to end the argument. For now, we're in this uneasy truce. I've been more proactive about cleaning during the day, even if it means squeezing chores in between work calls. She's been less passive-aggressive, but I can still feel her watching what I do, almost like she's keeping score. It's exhausting. The weirdest part is, outside of this one issue, we're great together. We laugh, we have fun, we're affectionate. But this chore divide has ballooned into something that feels way bigger than dishes or laundry. It feels like we're wrestling over what partnership even means. Well, a lot has happened since my last post, and I think I can finally call this the final update, because the situation has pretty much reached its end. The truce I mentioned in the last update lasted about 2 weeks. At first, I leaned into her request. I was doing more little things throughout the day, vacuuming the rug when I grabbed coffee between calls, folding laundry on my lunch break, even scooping the litter before she got home so she wouldn't notice the smell. I thought maybe if I just gave a little more, she'd meet me in the middle on weekends like we agreed. But weekends rolled around, and instead of stepping up, she got less inclined to help. I'd ask if she could handle groceries while I tackled bathrooms, and she'd say, "I had a long week, can we just order in and clean tomorrow?" Then tomorrow would come and she'd suggest brunch, or hanging with her friends, and suddenly I was the one unloading groceries, scrubbing the tub, and putting away laundry while she was watching Netflix. The resentment hit me like a slow boil. I started keeping mental tallies. Monday, I vacuumed, did dishes, cooked dinner. Tuesday, I did laundry, scooped litter, wiped counters. Wednesday, more dishes, trash out, cooked again. By Friday, I realized she hadn't lifted a finger all week, and when I brought it up, she snapped, "That's what happens when one partner works from home. That's just reality." That word, reality, really set me off. I told her flat out that she was confusing me being at home with me being available to serve her. I said, "You don't get to outsource your chores to me because your commute sucks." She shot back that I was selfish, that I didn't understand what it means to be in a relationship, and then the floodgates opened. We ended up having the ugliest fight we've ever had. She said she thought I was lazy, that my job wasn't real because I didn't have to physically leave the apartment, and that she felt like she was dating a roommate instead of a partner. I lost it and said if she wanted a housekeeper, she should hire one instead of dating me. It was brutal. The next morning, she barely looked at me before heading out. I worked all day with this pit in my stomach, and when she came home, she sat me down and said she didn't think this was working anymore. She said she needed someone who could make her life easier, and that our visions for partnership were just too different. I didn't even fight it. I was drained. I just nodded. She moved out, within a week, to stay with a friend while she looked for her own place. Watching her pack her stuff was surreal. Like, we had so many good times, but it all crumbled because we couldn't align on something as basic as chores. And yet, I know deep down it wasn't just about dishes or laundry. It was about expectations. She wanted a version of a relationship that mirrored her parents' dynamic, and I wanted an equal partnership where we both worked and both cleaned. Neither of us was wrong, but we were completely incompatible. Since she left, the apartment feels weirdly calm. I clean when I want to, not because I'm being measured against some invisible scoreboard. I cook meals I like. I work without guilt. And I've had time to reflect. The truth is, if I had stayed, I would have ended up resentful and bitter, probably feeling more like her employee than her boyfriend. So yeah, final outcome. We broke up. It sucks, but it's also a relief. Sometimes love isn't enough if you can't agree on what fair looks like. Stories. Number 4. 6 years. No ring, and he's more concerned about other people's lives than ours years. On July 20th, my BF 24M and I 23F will be celebrating our dating anniversary. I love him so much, he's my best friend in the entire world, and we've really grown together since we started dating at 18. As excited as I am to celebrate 6 years with him, I can't help but also dread it because it's another year of him not proposing. We've had a lot of people ask, "Oh my God, almost 6 years. Why aren't you guys engaged yet?" And also some people say, You guys are so young, just enjoy your lives, and honestly, within the relationship, we are both split. He went from asking me to marry him every day when we were 18 to saying we need to be more stable once we both entered the corporate workforce. We've discussed marriage, kids, and all of that, and have agreed those are things we both want. Of course, I understand him, and it is the responsible thing to do to have out finances and such, be more stable. However, it seems he's starting to prioritize other things over marriage. Like he's expressed his aspiration to move into the city, then another day wanting a new car, and then the next wanting to travel together, and all these new aspirations and wants are starting to hurt my head because it seems like he doesn't know what he wants. We've had so many discussions about our future and what we want to create together and what we wish for ourselves, but he always seems so sure about what he wants for himself and not for us. His older sister got engaged last year, and of course, we were both so happy and excited for her. However, I later found myself getting angry and upset, not towards her but my BF. He seemed so excited for her and her fiancé and their future, and started talking about our future as if it was a distant future. Like when people would tease us saying, "Oh, you guys are next," he'd just chuckle and stay quiet, or say, "Oh, we've got a long way." What was worse was that he'd ask me for my opinion about his sister's wedding, almost rubbing it in my face, asking me if I'd have a destination wedding, plan the same way as her, etc. Meanwhile, he's saying these contradicting things. In addition to this, I brought up to him recently that I'd like to be engaged soon, and he said he would not propose unless we lived together for at least a year. I expressed to him that I personally would not want to live together unless we are engaged, but he said that this is his one non-negotiable. I asked if he was willing to compromise, us to be engaged and start looking for a place after, but he said no. Just simply no. I asked if there was any other way, or if he had any ideas of how we could compromise, and he just shrugged. I am in no rush to be married or engaged, but I wanted to ask him his thoughts to further understand where he is at and where he thinks we are progressing. What is concerning to me, however, is that I asked him, "Okay, so if I don't live with you for another 3 years, then you won't propose?" And he said yes. Again, no compromise, further insinuating that he would make me wait until he gets his way. This made me really angry. Now I'm at this stage of denial but also acceptance, realizing that he won't do it unless I give him what he wants, and I truly don't know what to do. I couldn't even continue the conversation with him because how could I, after he just shut me down? He seems to be so excited for our friends and family around us getting engaged and having kids, but doesn't seem to be excited for us to do those things. I want to get engaged and married because I love him and want to start our future together, not because I'm trying to relate to people around me. However, I find that he always compares our relationship to other people's. My sister and her boyfriend traveled all over Europe. Why can't we? Whoa, my friend and his girlfriend just got a place together. We should do that. He's expressing what he wants passively, and when I actually try to talk to him about it, he seems closed off. I grew up in a fairly traditional household, and while I don't carry all of the values my parents raised me with, one of the few is waiting to be engaged, to be married to, move in together. And he's known this for some time, even before we started actively having these conversations. Recently, he started doing this thing that's actually made me crazy. He'll hold my hand and start measuring my ring finger as if cutely trying to gauge my ring size, and honestly, it feels like a punch in the gut. Like, who does that? After saying they don't plan to propose anytime soon? At this point, I truly don't know what to do anymore, and feel lost and almost nervous for our 6-year celebration coming up. I don't know how to change his mind because the last thing I want to do is beg him to propose. I feel stuck. Edit. I'm seeing a lot of comments about our ages. And again, like I said above, I understand we are young and have been together since I was 17, and he was 18. Why? I understand and hear that advice. However, I am not asking for marriage and babies next year. I'm simply asking for further commitment and engagement. Personally, I think if you've been with someone for 6 years, you should know by now. Also, a lot of you are saying I'm not willing to compromise. I've been hearing him out for years. The issue is, I have compromised so much for him, and he has yet to do that for me. For 2 years and the beginning of our relationship, he had no job. I paid for almost everything. Hey, I've also for the last few years have planned our dates, our trips, etc. I literally remind him when he has a doctor's appointment. Fast forward now being more financial stable, we've planned for trips and have traveled together, but when I ask him for some time to save, he keeps on insisting he wants to go somewhere and money can always be made later. When I try to understand him and see his perspective regarding living together, I expect that he'd do the same for me, but he doesn't. I always put in effort, and might I add for the last 2 years he hasn't bothered to do something special or plan something nice for my birthday, despite having all this money to get a new car and go on all these trips. He's changed a lot from the start in our relationship, especially when it comes to effort. He's a good guy, we've had so many great memories together, but I feel sometimes that I just mourn what we used to have. He's masking being responsible with what is convenient for him. It's about him and not about what I want, because if it was about what I want, he would understand my wants to save money for the future, to communicate more, etc. Marriage is not about having the big wedding or party. I told him he could literally propose with a ring pop, and I would say yes. He's a great guy, but he's also disappointed me so much, and don't think I can handle more disappointment. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Why would you think it makes sense to get married at 23? 6 years and no ring is not appropriate to start freaking out about when the 6 years began when you were a teenager. Chill out and live your life. I'm not speaking about whether or not you marry this guy, I'm talking about generally. Marriage is not the high watermark for relationships, and a wedding is not an adult bar mitzvah. Reply. Will, I'm not asking to get married at 23. I'm simply asking for reassurance and commitment with engagement. I think it's probably stemming from the feeling of being taken for granted at times. OP responds to a long comment regarding the relationship with her boyfriend. Who has been carrying the heavy responsibilities of the relationship? Reply. Whoa. Okay, well, I was on board and seeing where you are going with this. The things you listed are exactly what I have tried to discuss with him. I've been hearing him out for years. The issue is, I have compromised so much for him, and he has yet to do that for me. For 2 years in the beginning of our relationship, he had no job. I paid for almost everything. Example. For the last few years, I've planned our dates, our trips, etc. I literally remind him when he has a doctor's appointment. Fast forward now, being more financial stable, we've planned for trips and have traveled together. But when I ask him for some time to save, he keeps on insisting he wants to go somewhere, and money can always be made later. When I try to understand him and see his perspective regarding living together, I expect that he'd do the same for me, but he doesn't. I always put in effort, and might I add for the last 2 years he hasn't bothered to do something special or plan something nice for my birthday, despite having all this money to get a new car and go on all these trips. He's masking being responsible with what is convenient for him. It's about him and not about what I want, because if it was about what I want, he would understand my wants to save money for the future, to communicate more, etc. Marriage is not about having the big wedding or party. I told him he could literally propose with a ring pop, and I would say yes. I understand what you're saying, but I think you're giving him a bit too much credit. Commenter 2. First of all, he is 1000% correct in saying you need to live together before engagement, especially with how young you are. Secondly, he is saying all these things like, I want to move to the city, and I want to travel, because he's now realizing that the world and life in general is a lot bigger than just you and your relationship. You guys got together in high school and then likely went to college together, assuming now you've both just entered the real world, and he's realizing how young you both are and how much life has to offer. The last thing he wants is to continue to be tied down, doing the same thing y'all have been doing for 6 years. Reply. The issue here is that he doesn't actually ask me what I want. He always just assumes I'll follow him. He was on this whole rave about going to Colombia for a 1-month vacation, and when I told him I couldn't because of work, he said, so just tell them you'll work remotely. And when I told him again, I can't do that. Due to my managerial position at the office, he said, that's stupid. We should find a way to still do it. It goes back to him just wanting what he wants. I even told him we could do 2 weeks instead, maybe even 3, but I don't think I can do a month, and he just shut me down. I totally agree with wanting new sceneries and experiencing life together, but he just wants everything his way. Commenter 3. I mean, y'all are young 20s and haven't lived together. Why would you want to get married to someone you haven't ever lived with? 6 years together and don't live together. There's a lot more you need to accomplish. Do y'all still live at home with your parents? Where are y'all career-wise? You say you save, but he likes to spend. Honestly, if y'all aren't sharing bills, you can't tell him what to do with his money. Based on how you describe him, he isn't interested in settling down. He wants to have fun and enjoy the here and now. Y'all are young. Vacations, car, thinking about relocating. Figuring himself out. He also seems to be young-minded when it comes to some basic adulating. You want serious. Marriage, babies, etc. Y'all are not in the same place. Y'all need to understand that part and find partners that align with what you want. Oh, y'all were babies when you started to date. People change, especially that age range from 18 to 25. I agree with his stance on not proposing marrying someone who you haven't lived with. That is a different test of a relationship. That shows how aligned and compatible a couple really is. You want to know that beforehand. And being this is your first and only boyfriend since being an adult, you've never experienced living with a partner. You will be surprised how the cutesy things they do can end up driving you bananas. Reply. I come from a fairly traditional upbringing, and while I myself am not traditional, one of the values I've carried with me from my family is wanting to be engaged before living with my partner. We've both been working corporate jobs for 2 years and are making good wages and money in comparison to most people in our age range. My hesitance in not wanting to live together also comes from a place of wanting to see him mature more. He still lives at home with his mom, and I can see how he still depends on her for certain things, her still baby him at his big age of 24. She still does his laundry, for crying out loud. Commenter 4. I think the real question is, why do you want him? And why can't you be open, honest, transparent, and ask him what his plans are? This is on you. Reply. I ask him all the time. He seems to have a wall up or is vague. It's quite a difference from when we used to talk about things before. Update. 6 years, no ring. And he's more concerned about other people's lives than ours. Hi everyone. Gosh, it's truly been some time. I honestly kind of forgot I had posted this because a lot has happened in the last month or so. If you haven't read the original post, you can search the title in the group, if you haven't guessed already. I broke up with him. I let our anniversary pass, tried to move on from my anger and frustrations, and while our anniversary was great, I realized he simply just did not and could not understand me, and I simply couldn't let it go. About a week after our anniversary, we were downtown working, and on a whim, he asked if we could grab dinner after work. I said yes, and what was supposed to be a casual dinner and go home type of day turned into a dinner and exploring all the neighborhoods he wanted to live in downtown. I felt like I was ambushed into viewing neighborhoods and places I didn't even want to live in. We never discussed openly, and it made me feel almost sick, as it felt like he was just rubbing salt onto my wound passively, dangling the key to my future ring. If you remember from my previous post about how he used to size my ring finger, yeah, made me sick to my stomach just like that. At the end of the night before heading home, I asked if we could talk in his car when he was dropping me off. I brought up how I was still not happy about the relationship, feeling one-sided, and that while I put in all the effort, he put in the bare minimum and still whined about what he wanted in the relationship and never considered what I wanted. He actually got frustrated and said, "It makes no sense living together is more of a commitment because we are obligated to stay together due to paperwork. You can break off an engagement if you wanted to. We've had this conversation 4 to 5 times and you still don't understand me." He then went on about how it would be an opportunity to test things out. This statement was very much a slap to the face because I realized there that the same guy who used to vocalize wanting to get married every day did not truly think nor understand the importance of marriage and unity like I thought he did. And what hurt most was that after 6 years of being together and me for the last 2 years really vocalizing excitement and a future with him, he never once actually listened to me when I talked about how important and exciting engagement and marriage is to me. I then brought up how his words were hurtful, saying it's a good way to test it out and see how things go. I asked him What exactly are you testing out after 6 years? Test and see if you still like me and want to be together? For you to even say you'd have to test things out with us and not know what you want to do now. That's your answer. You're not committed to this, not committed to me. So I followed it up with, if you aren't sure you want to marry me now, you won't be sure tomorrow, next month, next year, or in the next 5 years, and I cannot simply wait for you to wake up and see me as worthy of a ring. And so I got up, out of the car, and told him it was over. It's been more than a month now, and I think I did the right thing. Of course, a part of me still misses and grieves him, but that last interaction told me exactly what I needed to hear. Yes, he's tried to keep in touch and wants to talk things out, but at this point in time I can't even look at him. To anyone out there having these same feelings, or maybe going through this same issue, do what you think is best for not only you, but your future self, your future kids, etc. Thank you to everyone who offered their sweet and supportive words. Good luck to you all. Top comments. Commenter 1. Test things out, I don't know how you didn't burst out laughing in his face after 6 years. Together. You absolutely did the right thing. Commenter 2. Don't be a placeholder. He's just not that into you. From meet to engagement to marriage, 3-5 years. Of course there is some exceptions, but for a woman who wants to be married before having kids, it's time to cut and move on. You don't want someone to marry you based on an ultimatum. Bravo. Commenter 3. You did the right thing. You can't control someone and force them to choose you. You can only choose yourself. Commenter 4. 6 years, FTW. Test is over, buddy. Yay. You did the right thing. You'll find your happy ending, even more so now that you dropped the dead weight. Stories number 5. I begged my partner not to get a dog. Now I hate its guts and I hate myself. I don't know how I got here, but somehow a 20-pound ball of fur is making me question my relationship, my patience, and honestly my own personality. I'm 32 and I've never wanted a dog. Not ever. Not when I was a kid. Not when I was a teenager begging my mom for things like rollerblades or a guitar. Never once was puppy on my list. I grew up with allergies, in small apartments where even having a goldfish was considered too much responsibility. Dogs were loud, messy, needy. I always thought of them as these chaos machines that everyone else seemed to love, but that I'd just have to politely avoid. Meanwhile, my partner, Adam 33, has wanted a dog since he was a kid. His family never had one because his mom insisted she was done raising things after 3 kids, but he's always carried this image of himself with a loyal dog, trotting beside him. In his mind, it was almost symbolic, like finally having the freedom as an adult to do what he'd always wanted. This has been a running argument in our relationship for years. He'd bring it up, I'd shut it down. He'd show me rescue sites, I'd say nope. He'd joke that he'd sneak one home someday, and I'd half laugh and half plead that he not do that to me. I honestly thought he understood how strongly I felt about it. Then last month, while I was working an overnight shift, he adopted a dog. A rescue mutt, about a year old, medium-sized, kind of a terrier mix with wiry hair that sticks out in all directions. Her name is Daisy. When I came home and found her in our living room, wagging her tail like she owned the place, I just froze. Adam was beaming like a kid on Christmas morning, crouched down next to her with his arm around her like they'd known each other forever. He said, "Surprise! Meet Daisy. Isn't she perfect?" I didn't even know what to say. I think I mumbled something like, "You really did this without me?" And he said, "I couldn't wait anymore. You'll love her once you get to know her." The first week I tried. I really did. I bought an air purifier to deal with my allergies. I let Daisy sniff me, lick my hand, curl up near my feet while I watched TV. I went with Adam to pick out toys and treats. I even brushed her once or twice, trying to pretend I was the cool dog mom, even though it felt like a costume that didn't fit. But the reality hit hard and fast. Daisy follows me everywhere. She scratches at the bathroom door if I close it. She jumps onto our bed in the middle of the night. Even though I said that was my one boundary, she barked at me for closing the fridge. She peed on the only rug I actually like in the apartment, the one I spent months saving for, I snapped. Not at Adam, not even directly at Daisy, but in these little ways. I slammed doors. I said no too sharply. I pulled the rug into the corner like I was hiding it from her. Every time she looked at me with those wide, trusting eyes, I just felt myself shutting down instead of softening. Adam noticed. Of course he did. One night he sat me down and said, "I don't get it. She's sweet. She loves you. Why can't you just warm up to her?" And I didn't have an answer that didn't make me sound like the worst person alive. I keep thinking about how this must look from the outside. Most people would kill to have a partner surprise them with a rescue dog. Most people would post 1,000,000 photos online and call it the best day ever. And here I am, scrolling through my phone late at night, Googling things like, "I hate my partner's dog," and feeling like an alien. I hate how petty I sound, even to myself. I hate how much I judge Daisy for being a dog, doing dog things like barking, jumping, needing constant attention. I hate that I find myself side-eyeing her toys on the floor, her food bowls by the kitchen, the way the apartment smells different now. I hate how tense I get when I hear her nails clicking on the hardwood. But the part I really can't stand is what it's doing to my relationship with Adam. He looks at Daisy the way people look at babies. He's happier than I've ever seen him, sitting on the floor while she licks his face, telling me, "I can't believe we didn't do this sooner." And instead of sharing in that joy, I feel like I'm standing outside a window looking in. I keep wondering if this is the hill our relationship dies on. We've been together for 5 years. We've talked about marriage, about buying a house. I thought we were in this for the long haul. But now I lie awake at night thinking, if I can't love the dog, can I really love the life that comes with Adam? And then comes the guilt. The crushing, relentless guilt. Because it's not Daisy's fault. She didn't ask to be adopted into a home where one person resents her existence. She didn't choose me. Adam chose her. And maybe in some ways, Adam chose her over me. I've caught myself avoiding the living room when he's playing with her, retreating to the bedroom like a sulking teenager. I've caught myself fantasizing about life before Daisy, when the apartment felt like mine too. And then I spiral into self-loathing because who hates a dog? What kind of cold, selfish, inflexible person does that make me? I feel embarrassed even writing this, but at the same time I feel like I'm drowning in it. I want to be better. I want to stop resenting Adam's joy. I want to stop resenting Daisy for simply existing. I want to stop feeling like a stranger in my own life because of one decision I begged him not to make. Right now, though, I don't see a way out. I hate Daisy's guts, and I hate myself for it. Stories number 6. AITA for imposing my culture. Even though I thought I was just being nice? Even though I 23F am American, my parents are immigrants, and therefore I have a different cultural upbringing than most. One thing that was hammered into my head from a young age was to always bring a small gift when visiting anyone's house. It doesn't matter if it's family or friends, or that one person you kind of know but don't really like, bringing something is a must. My BF 28 Mem and I have been dating for almost 4 years now, and since we both work from home, he suggested we make dinner with his parents a weekly thing, since we haven't been able to see each other much for obvious reasons. I love his parents, so obviously I agreed. Every week I made sure to bring something small to show my appreciation for them cooking for us, always using my own money. A small bottle of wine, their favorite dessert, some flowers, etc. Oh boy, and they always thanked me for it. This has been going on for a few months, and absolutely didn't notice anything out of the ordinary until yesterday, when my BF and I were preparing to head over. I'd gotten a cute vase of daffodils since, luckily I'd found some in bloom, and my BF's mom really loves them. But my BF suddenly got really mad and asked why I kept bringing stuff over every week, like his parents were a charity case. Honestly, I got super confused and asked him what the problem was, and that I've always done this with everyone, including his friends, since we met. That it was a cultural thing, but then he got even madder and told me to stop imposing my culture on everyone, and it's weird since I'm white. At that point I didn't feel like going anywhere with him, and just gave him the flowers and went for a walk while he drove over to dinner by himself. After he came home, he still had the flowers which he gave to me and told me he was sorry. But his parents really were super annoyed with me constantly bringing stuff over like they can't take care of themselves, and later on I got a text from his dad asking me to not come over for dinner anymore. Now my BF's giving me the cold shoulder unless I give his parents a huge apology, but I really, truly don't feel like I'm in the wrong for trying to be nice to them. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. His dad texted you? The father of a nearly 30-year-old man texted you to tell you are no longer welcome at their home because of basically host gifts? No, NTA. This dude and his family suck. Reply. Well, he didn't say anything about the gifts, just to not come over for dinner. My BF told me they rejected the flowers and told him to tell me that, which made me sad. Commenter 2. I wouldn't really trust your boyfriend on what he is saying. Maybe talk to his parents directly because your boyfriend may have told them something that would make them act like this around you. Reply. I'm overwhelmed right now. Why would he lie? He's never done anything like this before, and even helped me pick out gifts a few times. Commenter 3. He would lie because in his mind he concocted a whole untrue situation and wants someone to validate it. I'm not sure where he pulled this narrative out of, but it sounds lame he has let it fester. It just is too coincidental that he blew up on you about the gift, then suddenly his parents are upset when no one has said anything before. It really does point to him spreading the false narrative to make his point sound real. Reply. He's refusing to answer any of my questions now and threw the flowers out. Now I'm just getting mad. I have no idea why there's this sudden change in behavior, but I'm going to make him sit down with me and have a talk about why all this is happening all of a sudden. Commenter 4. Imagine this. When his friends ask him why they broke up, he has to say that she gave his parents gifts. The horror. What a fill-in-blank here. Reply. I'm not breaking up with him. He's the man I want to marry. He may be mad right now, but all I want is for things to be normal again. I just started bugging him about going over to his parents so I can apologize, but he wants me to do it by text, which I don't understand. Commenter 5. I think he wants you to apologize by text so you don't find out that he told his parents something completely untrue. If you get together in person, you'll have the opportunity to check stories with each other. Also, I know you don't want to hear this, but please don't marry this man. Reply. I'm getting him off his game right now and will sit him down for a talk. Simply put, he's acting like a brat right now, and I want to know why he doesn't want me talking to his parents. Small update in the comments. I'm feeling extremely overwhelmed right now and just making a quick comment because all of you are being so nice. Sat my BF down after dragging him off his game and grilled him about what was happening, but he said I was being crazy when I started all this and to just let us write a text to his parents apologizing. Wochi, I said no, and that we would go over to apologize, but he started freaking out, which was the final straw. He's doing everything to get me to stay home, but I'm going over and sorting this out since I tried calling anyway, but the number's out of order. Some more responses before I leave. I'm so sorry I can't answer everyone. My parents are from the Caribbean, and he's very American, but he and his family have never been racist or anything before. They are actually much more well-off than me, and my gifts are never expensive since I pay for them on my own, which is why I'm now very suspicious of them behaving this way. The reason only the dad texted me is because his parents aren't super tech-savvy and share a simple phone he picked out for them. I know there's a bit of an age gap, but I pursued the relationship myself because he asked me out casually at work, as a frequent customer, and I accepted. Relevant comments. Commenter. 1. Oh buddy, he is hiding a doozy of a lie, and you are very close to unraveling it. Trust your instincts and talk to his parents directly. Do not let him convince you that you're crazy and need to do things his way. Commenter 2. Yeah. Sounding to me like he used a number spoofing app to text her saying he was his dad. We'll see after an update hopefully. Commenter 3. I tried calling anyway, but the number's out of order? Has his dad ever communicated with you before using this number? 'Cause it sounds like the BF sent that text. I'm willing to bet that his family has no idea what is going on. Commenter 4. Here's what I think is happening. Unfortunately, let's hope it's not the case, but I believe your BF is cheating on you. Everyone here sees how ODD this behavior is. Even after you explain to him that it's a cultural thing and you're doing it with good manners, he is still adamant and pissed off? Think about it. Who the hell gets mad over giving gifts? The reason I believe he is cheating is because of how he is approaching the situation. When someone tries to quit on a relationship and does not want to admit it, they begin creating problems and conflicts out of ridiculous and simple things. You said so yourself. You've been doing this since you met, and now it's a problem? My guess is that he doesn't know how to break it off with you, and chose the most ridiculous excuse, you giving gifts to his parents, to create a problem and a rift amongst you. Even if this isn't the case, what he is doing is extremely suspicious. He is lying about something. I also believe that it was your BF who sent the text instead of his dad. How coincidental that when you tried to call, the phone was out of order. How suspicious of him to be so stubborn to make you stay home. Talk with his parents. Trust your instincts and do what you must do. You deserve so much better. Update. AITA for imposing my culture. Even though I thought I was, just being nice? First of all, I just want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support and replies on my first post. I'm looking forward to going over to everyone's houses for dinner, and I'll be sure to bring all the things you said you liked. Many flower lovers out there. I'm now also apparently the DIL to a lot of hopeful parents that replied as well, so I hope I can deliver on expectations. After my last update, I told my BF I was sick and tired of him dancing around the issue with his parents, and I was going to go over to their house, whether he liked it or not. At this point, I think he realized that whatever he was doing had backfired, so he sat down all angry and told me he'd explain. I sat and he told me that he'd done something very spur of the moment, and that he'd texted me from his dad's phone, then blocked the number but begged me to listen, that he just needed to get his parents off me for a while, and to not leave. Apparently his parents had started hinting at him about marriage, since my BF and I talked a lot about it. I fully expected to marry him, as I said in another comment, and was honestly expecting a proposal in late spring, since that's when we met. 4 years dating didn't bother me, but I was getting excited to settle down. However, my BF apparently realized that he absolutely didn't want to commit to anything, and wanted to experiment and have fun since I wasn't being fun anymore. Honestly, that just made me cry, since we were each other's firsts for everything, and usually very good at communicating our needs. His grand plan was to get him mad at me so I would beg for forgiveness, and then he'd only accept an open relationship as an answer. Absolutely brilliant plan, I know. He'd made up his parents getting mad but didn't expect me to blow off dinner completely, and it's like hitting a jackpot. His words, not mine. He went over for dinner, hid the flowers, and said we'd gotten into a huge fight, but he was going to fix it. But I needed space. After he confessed all this, he said he was very sorry but really didn't want to miss out on new experiences when he was still young, and would I consider an open relationship but pretend ours was strained with his parents so they wouldn't get suspicious? And I laughed. Why? I laughed his ass right out the door and told him absolutely not, and to leave me alone while I packed because I wanted to have some new experiences too. He never stopped begging me to stay, but I left to sleep at a friend's. After calming down for a few days, I cemented the breakup, and finally actually went over to his parents. My ex-BF's dad never even noticed the phone missing but still apologized, and his mom was a mess. I did, and still love them, and will eat dinner there without him as often as I can. I won't lie that I'm sad about 4 years down the drain, but that's life. And if that was my ex's best possible plan, then I dodged the bullet by a mile. Small update in the comments. A few quick answered questions. Yes, my BF's parents do share a phone. I don't find it particularly strange since they use Facebook, video chat friends, play Candy Crush, etc. on their iPads and don't have much use for a phone. They find iPads easier to use and also go everywhere together. Very cute, I know. So if someone really does need to call them, the other is right there. Previously, my BF had absolutely no problem whatsoever with me bringing gifts anywhere. Like I said in a comment, he'd helped me pick things out before, and is usually great at communicating whenever he feels we need to talk about something, which is why I was so confused with him. He knows it's how I was raised, and was respectful to every other aspect of my upbringing. His parents are not poor and raised him with good manners and etiquette. I saw a lot of other people comment on what I was bringing, and no, I wasn't bringing gigantic vases with wilted flowers, or an entire cake, or multiple bottles of the same type of wine every week. Whenever I did bring something edible, it was small, and we'd usually consume it with dinner, and as for the flowers, I'd usually just leave them in the plastic wrap they came with water. The vase was a rare thing that my BF's mom could have used for dozens of things since it was a clear glass. I also wanted to add that I'm so sorry the mods here had to deal with all the remind me update spam. I quite literally got thousands of replies and follows, and update messages, so I can't imagine how busy and stressful it was for you. People were still doing it after you told them not to. I'd go crazy trying to sort through and delete what's necessary, but you all did an amazing job, thank you. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Good riddance. It sucks that you wasted 4 years on this idiot, but at least this came out before you got marred or had kids. Stay 100% no contact with him, and do not take him back no matter how much he begs you to get back together, which he inevitably will. Reply: I've blocked him on absolutely everything at the insistence of my friends. He was going to tell all of them that we'd fought as well, but ever since the breakup they've all told him what a mistake it was, and thankfully been on my side. Ah, he must be absolutely miserable right now. Commenter 2. Well, isn't that some impressive arse-foolery? If that's your ex's idea of a cunning plan, I'd hate to see his badly thought-out flops. Eesh. Good on you for staying true to yourself through all of this. I'm glad you're out of it. Best of luck finding a new place and rebuilding the parts of your life you thought he was integral to. Reply: I really can't believe he thought it would work. If he'd talked to me seriously, I'm sure we could have figured something out, but instead, he did that. Commenter 3. So based on the ages, your partner was a 24-year-old virgin that found a 19-year-old and then 4 years later tried to manipulate you into an open relationship. Nothing wrong with being a virgin at that age, BTW. Worse yet, this manipulation included his own parents. Your partner sounds like a previous possible incel who has convinced himself that he could get so many girls now. I'm glad you've put yourself first and he can see how successful he is. When he strikes out, please, 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 do not take him back. He showed you how he really feels about you. Reply: I really wouldn't call him an incel, but honestly, who knows what he's hiding in that head of his at this point. We both took the intimate part slowly since he was nervous, but I wouldn't doubt he thought he could get a lot of women since he makes a good amount of money. Oh well, not my problem anymore. Commenter 4. Wow, just wow. I honestly can't believe your ex-boyfriend. He wanted his cake and to eat it too. Why on earth he thought that'd work, I have no idea. Congrats of being rid of him. Go live your life, have fun, go get new experiences. Stories. Number 7. My newborn is 12 days old, and I'm already getting unsolicited parenting advice that I'm spoiling her. I honestly don't care, and I'm sick of people acting like they know better than me. For context, I'm Emma, 30, and I gave birth to my daughter just under 2 weeks ago. My husband Tyler and I have been in this little newborn bubble since we got home from the hospital, and it's been overwhelming and exhausting, but also incredible in ways I didn't even expect. I didn't know I could love someone this much after less than 2 weeks on Earth. Here's the thing. A lot of my friends, cousins, and even acquaintances have already started chiming in about how I'm caring for my daughter. Most of them don't even have kids, which makes it even more annoying. Apparently, because I love letting her nap on my chest, or do skin-to-skin contact naps during the day, I'm spoiling her. Eddie? Yes, that's the actual word some of them have used. Spoiling. First off, how do you spoil a literal 12-day-old human? She doesn't even know what day it is. She just knows she's hungry, tired, wet, or uncomfortable. She has no clue about manipulation or forming bad habits. She's not calculating how to get her way by crying. She cries because that's literally her only form of communication right now. Tyler and I have been reading baby books and talking with our pediatrician, Dr. Miller, who has reassured us that skin-to-skin contact and holding her during naps is not only fine but beneficial. It helps regulate her breathing, her body temperature, even her stress levels. And it helps me too. My postpartum hormones are still a roller coaster, and sitting there with her tiny body curled up on my chest, hearing her little sighs, makes me feel calmer than anything else. She sleeps completely fine in her bassinet, crib, and even the swing sometimes. At night she's in the bassinet next to our bed, and she does 2 to 3 hour stretches before waking to feed. During the day, sometimes I put her down and she naps independently. At other times, I just want to hold her. I love it. I love feeling her warm little body, sniffing her head, listening to her funny baby grunts and squeaks. It's bonding, it's special, and yes, sometimes I let her fall asleep right on me and stay that way for an hour. But when I mentioned this in a group chat with some friends, one of them, Lauren, who doesn't have kids, immediately jumped in with, "You shouldn't do that too much. You're going to spoil her. She'll never sleep on her own if you keep doing that." Another one, Chris, who's single and lives with 2 cats, said, "Yeah, you're basically creating a clingy baby. Good luck ever putting her down." I swear I almost lost it. I wanted to type in all caps, "She is 12 days old. 12 days." Instead, I just said something like, "Thanks for your concern, but we're good," and muted the chat for the night. Tyler laughed about it later and said, "I don't get why people without kids think they're suddenly pediatricians. It doesn't stop with my friends either." My Aunt Carol came over to drop off some meals she made, which was sweet, but when she saw me rocking the baby in the recliner while she slept against my chest, she said, "Careful, if you hold her like that too much, she'll never want to sleep in her crib." I smiled and brushed it off, but inside I was thinking, she literally slept in her crib last night. What are you talking about? What really gets me is the way people say it, like I'm doing something harmful, as if my newborn feeling safe and loved is a bad thing, as if letting her nap on me for an hour is going to ruin her chances at independence later in life. News flash. You don't create a spoiled, entitled adult by cuddling a newborn. It makes me wonder if this is just the beginning of endless, unsolicited parenting advice. Like once she's a toddler, will people tell me I'm spoiling her if I comfort her after she falls? Or when she's 5, will they say I'm too soft if I let her crawl into bed after a nightmare? There's such a toxic idea out there that love equals weakness, and I hate it. I grew up in a house where affection wasn't really shown. My parents, Mark and Denise, weren't bad parents, but they weren't touchy or emotionally expressive either. I remember craving hugs or wanting my mom to just sit with me, but she'd brush me off, saying, "You're fine." So maybe part of me is overcompensating, but honestly, I don't care. I want my daughter to grow up knowing that comfort and safety are always available to her, especially from me. The truth is, these 12 days have been both the hardest and the most beautiful of my life. I've barely slept. My boobs are sore from nursing. I've cried in the shower more than once, but I've also sat there staring at her little face for hours in awe. She doesn't care about my messy bun, my stretchy sweatpants, or whether the dishes are done. She just knows she's safe when she's with me. And yes, sometimes she farts in her sleep while snuggled up on me, and I laugh so hard I cry. And sometimes I kiss her tiny fingers and whisper that she's my whole world. If that makes her spoiled, then I'm happy to spoil her every single day. So to all the Laurens and Carols of the world, thanks for your input. But I'm going to keep holding my baby whenever I damn well please. She's not spoiled. She's loved. And there's a big difference. Stories number 8. Why didn't he ask for my number? I'm 25 and single, and last night I went out with a couple of friends to a club downtown. It wasn't a huge, we're getting wild type of night. More like we wanted to get dressed up, dance a little, and have some fun. My friend Rachel, 26, and her boyfriend Marcus, 28, were with me, and they're always down for a good time. At one point, I slipped away from the dance floor to grab a drink. The bar was packed, neon lights flickering, the kind of place where you can feel the bass of the music in your chest. I squeezed my way up to the counter and ordered a vodka soda, and that's when this guy, let's call him Jason, 24, stepped up next to me. Jason was cute. Not like model perfect, but he had this approachable vibe. Tall, dark hair that kept falling into his eyes, and this easy grin. He glanced at me and said something simple like, "Long line, huh?" And that sparked it. We started talking while waiting for our drinks, and it flowed effortlessly. He cracked a joke about how the DJ was playing early 2000s, throwbacks, and how it felt like a middle school dance but with alcohol. I laughed harder than I probably should have, but it was the kind of laugh where you realize instantly, oh, I'm enjoying this person. Then, out of nowhere, this older man comes up and taps Jason on the shoulder. Jason turns and says, "Oh, hey, Dad." Yes, his dad. At the club. My eyebrows shot up, But Jason just shrugged and explained that his dad, Brian, lived nearby and wanted to grab a drink with him before heading out somewhere else. It wasn't awkward, though. If anything, it made Jason seem more grounded. He introduced me, and Brian was friendly, cracking jokes like he was everyone's favorite uncle. While I'm chatting with Jason and his dad, Rachel and Marcus come over. Suddenly, the five of us are all talking like we've known each other for years. It was bizarre, but in the best way. Jason even bought another round for the group, and I could feel this little buzz building between us, not from the alcohol, but the chemistry. When we finally decided to leave the club, Rachel suggested we head back to her and Marcus's place for a post-game hangout. Jason came along, leaving his dad behind, which made me smile. Like, okay, he chose to keep hanging out with me and my friends. At Rachel's place, we all sat around the living room, music still playing low from a speaker, drinks in hand. At some point, Jason and I ended up on the couch together. It wasn't over the top. We weren't making out or anything, but we sat close, shoulders touching, legs brushing, and eventually I leaned into him. He slipped his arm around me and we just fit. We talked for what felt like hours. About school, about work. He does something in tech sales, I think, about travel. He told me about how his family is really close, and I told him about how I want to move cities someday. The room around us faded out. Rachel and Marcus went to the kitchen at one point, and it was like the world shrunk down to just him and me. By the time I glanced at the clock, it was nearly 4 a.m. I wasn't blackout drunk, but I was tired, and I said something about needing to head home. Jason didn't hesitate. He offered to walk me out. We got back to my place, and I don't even know how to explain it except it was natural. I let him come in, and we just crashed on my couch. There was zero pressure. We cuddled, and I actually fell asleep tucked against him, which I never do with someone I've just met. But he made me feel safe. When we woke up the next morning, it wasn't awkward. If anything, it felt surprisingly comfortable. We both laughed at how gross we probably looked, hair messy, still in last night's clothes. He suggested grabbing lunch, so we got dressed and walked to this diner a couple blocks away. Lunch was great. He was funny, easy to talk to, asked about my favorite movies and told me about his obsession with old video games. When the bill came, he grabbed it without hesitation. It wasn't a huge deal, but it felt intentional. Like he wanted to take care of it, no questions asked. Then came the part that's been haunting me all day. After lunch, we walked outside. The sun was bright, and there was this little pause where I thought, this is the moment. This is when one of us will say, hey, let me get your number, or what's your Instagram? Something, anything. But instead he smiled, said, I had a really great time, and gave me a hug. I said the same, and then we just went our separate ways. I didn't realize until I was halfway home that we hadn't exchanged any form of contact information. Not a number, not a handle, nothing. It hit me like a wave, and after all of that, after spending basically an entire night and morning together, I had no way to reach him. And now I feel so stupid, because I kept thinking he would ask, and I didn't want to seem too forward or desperate by being the one to bring it up. I thought for sure he was into me. Cuddling, staying the night, paying for lunch, the whole vibe. But the fact that he walked away without asking for my number makes me wonder if I misread the entire thing. Was it just a fun night for him? Did he feel differently in the morning? Did he think I wasn't interested because I didn't ask either? I keep replaying it in my head, trying to figure out the moment I should have spoken up. Now I'm sitting here feeling like I'll never see him again. I don't even know his last name, so I can't stalk him on social media, believe me. I've tried. All I know is his first name is Jason. He's 24. And his dad's name is Brian. That's it. It feels like a weird fever dream. One night of amazing connection, hours of conversation, laughing until my stomach hurt, falling asleep next to someone who felt like more than a stranger, and now nothing. So Reddit. Why didn't he ask for my number? Update. Why didn't he ask for my number? So, a lot of you told me in the comments and DMs that I was overthinking, that maybe Jason was shy, maybe he thought I wasn't into him, or maybe it was just one of those meant-for-the-night moments. I spent a couple of days kicking myself for not just saying, hey, let me give you my number, because it would have been so simple. But instead, I wallowed, replaying the diner goodbye in my head over and over. Well, you're not going to believe this, But I actually saw him again. It happened about a week after the night we met. Rachel texted me that there was this trivia night at a bar near campus, and she and Marcus wanted me to come. Honestly, I wasn't in the mood, but I figured it'd be good to get out of my head and stop obsessing about a random guy who probably didn't think twice about me. We walk into the bar, and guess who's sitting at a table near the front? Jason? I almost tripped over my own feet when I saw him. He was with two friends, and he looked exactly the same. That same messy dark hair, that same easy smile. My stomach dropped. Rachel noticed before I could even say anything and gave me this little smirk like, "Isn't that your boy?" I tried to play it cool, but inside I was panicking. Part of me wanted to march right over. Part of me wanted to hide in the bathroom forever. But before I could decide, Jason looked up and spotted me. His whole face lit up, and he actually waved me over. When I walked over, he stood up and gave me a hug like we'd known each other forever. It wasn't awkward at all. He said something like, "I was wondering if I'd ever see you again," which instantly made me feel less insane for obsessing. We ended up pulling 2 chairs over so Rachel, Marcus, and I could sit with Jason and his friends. Trivia was kind of a blur because Jason and I kept talking, whispering little jokes to each other, stealing glances. He asked how my week had been, and I told him about work, and then he said he'd been kicking himself because we didn't exchange numbers after lunch. He literally said, "I don't know what I was thinking. I should have asked, but then you didn't ask either, and I thought maybe you weren't interested." I just laughed, and admitted I'd been agonizing over the same exact thing. Rachel and Marcus overheard, and were just grinning like idiots, because apparently it was very obvious to everyone except us. This time, Jason didn't waste any time. He pulled his phone out right then and said, "Let me fix this before we screw it up again." We exchanged numbers, and I swear the weight lifted off my shoulders immediately. After trivia, we all hung around for a while, but Jason asked if I wanted to grab a late bite. Just the 2 of us. We walked down the street to this little taco place and sat in a booth talking until almost midnight. It was the same easy flow as before. Conversation bouncing back and forth, him making me laugh so hard I snorted, me telling him stuff I don't usually share with people I've only just met. At the end of the night, when he dropped me off at my place, he kissed me. Just a quick, sweet kiss that made my cheeks burn and my stomach flip. Nothing crazy, but enough to confirm this was not just some random fling. So yeah, I guess the universe decided to give me a second chance. And this time, I wasn't dumb enough to let him walk away without a way to contact me. We've been texting since, and we're already making plans to hang out again this weekend. I don't know where this is going, but I know I'm glad I didn't let my fear of looking too forward ruin it a second time. Final update. Why didn't he ask for my number? So it's been about 2 months since my last post. Honestly, I didn't expect so many people to follow along with this silly story of me panicking over a guy at a club, but here we are. A lot has happened since then, and I think it's time to give a proper final update. After trivia night, when Jason and I finally exchanged numbers, things moved fast in a way that felt natural, not rushed. We started texting every day. At first it was just lighthearted. Memes, random, "How's your day going?" Little callbacks to inside jokes from the night we met. But soon it became longer conversations. He'd stay up late to talk with me even when he had work early, and I found myself looking forward to his name, popping up on my screen more than anything else. Our first official real date was the following weekend. Jason took me to a small Italian place that wasn't fancy but felt intentional. He made reservations, held the door for me, and made sure I knew it was a date. Afterward, we walked around downtown, got ice cream, and ended up sitting by the river just talking. That night when he kissed me again, it wasn't quick like the first time. It was longer, sweeter, and I knew right then that this wasn't just going to be a fling. The thing about Jason is that he's consistent. He doesn't play games, doesn't disappear for hours, doesn't breadcrumb attention. He's just present, and that's not something I was used to. We've been spending weekends together, brunches, hikes, movie nights at his apartment where I learned he has a collection of old GameCube games and insisted on teaching me Mario Kart. He's met more of my friends, and Rachel in particular has been milking the "I'm basically your fairy godmother" joke because she was the one who dragged me to trivia that night. Here's the kicker, though, I actually ran into his dad again. Remember Brian, the dad at the club? Jason invited me over for a family barbecue, and there he was, flipping burgers, cracking jokes, treating me like he'd known me for years. He winked at me and said, "Glad my boy finally got his act together and asked for your number." I nearly died of embarrassment, but Jason just laughed and said, "Yeah, I know. I'm an idiot." The night ended with Jason pulling me aside after everyone left, telling me he was glad I'd come. He said he didn't want to rush anything, but he really liked where this was going, and I told him I felt the same. So here's where we're at now. We're officially dating. Not just talking, not seeing where it goes, actually dating. It still feels new, but in a really good way. We've already talked about doing a weekend trip together soon, maybe hiking in Colorado or a quick beach getaway. And I don't feel that anxious. Does he like me? Feeling that I used to get with other guys. With Jason, I just know. Looking back, I laugh at how dramatic I felt after that first night when we didn't exchange numbers. I was convinced I'd never see him again, that it was some cosmic missed opportunity. And it could have been, but sometimes life throws you a second chance, and you've just got to take it. So yeah, the guy who didn't ask for my number, he's my boyfriend now. And I'm really glad I didn't let that one slip away. Thanks to everyone who told me to chill out, who said, "If it's meant to be, it'll be." Turns out you were right. Stories number 9. AITA for not wanting my 4-year-old daughter to join a soccer team simply because I don't want to get up early every Saturday. My husband has said he thinks I'm being selfish, and I am. But I am being strategic here. I'm a mom of 2, 4, and under. Currently, 5 months pregnant. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I have narcolepsy. So needless to say, I'm tired all the time. Saturday is the one day in my week where there are no set plans, and I like it that way. Why do I need to ruin the one day I get to choose what I want to do, just so my 4-year-old, who probably won't know what she is missing, can go play a sport she probably isn't ready to play anyway? She has years to pick up a hobby. I just don't see the point right now, other than to stress me out even more than I already am. Point blank, I'm just tired and don't want to, so I can't even say. It's not selfish, but we are allowed to be selfish on some things, and I feel justified because I'm at my personal capacity. My husband won't even be able to help with every game because he sometimes works weekends, so no, I'm not interested in putting my kids in sports right now because I will likely flake on those days he works. Also, we live in a very hot state. I have zero interest in spending more time outside than I have to. My husband's reasoning is he wants her to be athletic and mostly that she will make friends and have fun socializing. I'd rather help her socialize through play dates, not a weekly commitment to be on a team. My in-laws have made it clear they agree that it would be good for her, and I'm being unfair. My family thinks it's not that important right now but say she would have fun. So what do you think? Update. My daughter has been enrolled in soccer. Believe it or not, I actually have a very supportive village, including my in-laws and husband. Maybe I'm selfish, but it is because I know if I burn out, I will not be a good mother, teacher, wife, or person. LOL. Everyone needs rest and time for themselves. If that makes me selfish, then oh well, I'm unashamedly selfish. I love my children more than anything in the world. But I have needs too, and they need to understand others have needs too. It's a good thing to say no sometimes. I also clean house on Saturdays and know if I get up and leave the house early, I will find other things in town to do and never come home to clean. My children need a clean home to live in more than extracurricular activities. However, I am giving this a try and will continue letting her do soccer if she likes it and if it works for the whole family. Stories number 10. My best friend is furious I won't let her bring her newborn to my child-free wedding, so here's the situation. My fiancé, Brian 32M, and I 30F are getting married this fall. We've been together almost 7 years, and when we started planning the wedding, one of the things we agreed on right away was that we wanted it to be child-free. It wasn't a decision we made lightly. We both love kids, but we wanted one day that was about celebrating with adults. No chaos, no crying, no toddlers running around the dance floor tripping over wires. We want people to relax, drink, and have fun without worrying about bedtime schedules. When we sent out invitations months ago, we were super clear. No kids. We even wrote a polite note on the invite about it, and made sure to spread the word verbally too. At the time, everyone seemed totally fine with it. Nobody pushed back, at least not to us directly. Fast forward to now, and it's become a full-blown problem because of my best friend, Emily 29F. She just had a baby boy 2 months ago. I was so excited for her. I threw her baby shower. I've been over to visit. I've brought meals. I've done all the best friend auntie things because I really do adore her. But last week, Emily called me out of the blue, and instead of chatting like we usually do, she went straight into it. She said, "I need you to know that I'm bringing the baby to your wedding. No one is going to stop me. I'm breastfeeding. I can't leave him." I tried to stay calm. I told her I totally understand that it's hard. He's so young, and she's still adjusting. But I reminded her that our wedding is child-free, and that rule applies to everyone, no exceptions. I said, "It's not personal. We're asking this of all our guests, not just you." She got defensive. She said, "So you're really going to make me choose between feeding my son and celebrating my best friend? You're really going to force me to stay home?" I told her that wasn't true. I even offered solutions. I said we could pay for a hotel room nearby so her mom or her husband could watch the baby while she popped in and out to nurse. I even offered to cover the cost of a professional sitter, someone trustworthy and licensed, so she'd have peace of mind. She shot down everything. She said, "If he's not welcome, then I'm not coming." Period. That gutted me. She's been my best friend since we were 15. She knows how important this wedding is to me. She knows how much thought Brian and I have put into this day. But now she's making me feel like I'm some kind of shallow bridezilla who cares more about aesthetics than her friendship. She literally told me, "You're choosing the look of your wedding over people who love you. You're punishing me for being a mom." I told Brian everything, and he was really firm. He said, "We made the rule for a reason. If we cave for Emily, then someone else will expect the same. Before you know it, half the guest list has kids there, and the entire vibe is different. Stick to what we decided." And he's right. Already one of his cousins asked if they could bring their toddler. We said no, and they respected it. How can I look them in the eye if I let Emily bring her newborn but not their kid? It feels unfair. But some of my other friends have been weighing in, and not all of them are on my side. One mutual friend told me, "Come on, it's just a newborn. He's not going to be running around or screaming during the vows. Just let her sit in the back with him and leave if he cries." Another friend said, "This is your best friend. Don't you think the exception is worth it to keep her in your life? You'll regret it if she misses your wedding." So now I'm torn. On one hand, I don't want to compromise the wedding Brian and I envisioned. On the other hand, I don't want to lose Emily over this. But I also feel like she's being unfair. She had months to tell me this was going to be a problem. Instead, she waited until the last minute and gave me an ultimatum. To me, that doesn't feel like friendship. I don't think it's about the aesthetics, either. It's about consistency. If the rule applies to one, it applies to all. Otherwise, it's chaos. But at the same time, I hate that Emily's angry with me. I hate that she's making me feel like a villain on my own wedding day. Brian says we should stand firm. Emily says I'm heartless. Our other friends are split. And I feel completely stuck. Would you stand your ground in my shoes? Or would you bend the rule for a newborn? Update. Wow, I wasn't expecting so many responses. I read through a ton of them, and it really helped me calm down and think things through. A lot of you said exactly what Brian has been saying. We set a boundary, and it's not fair to bend it for one person. Others pointed out that this isn't just about a baby, it's about respect for our wedding choices. So here's what's happened since my original post. Emily doubled down. She sent me this long text basically saying, "If you cared about me at all, you'd make this work. I can't believe you'd throw away 15 years of friendship because of one baby." I didn't answer right away because honestly, it made me cry. I sat on it for a day, and then I wrote back saying, "I love you and I want you there, but our decision about the wedding stands. It's not about you or your son. It's about the event we've been planning for years. If you can't come, I'll miss you, but I understand." She left me on read. A couple of days later, I got a call from her husband. Mark? I actually like Mark. We've always gotten along, but the conversation was rough. He started out polite, then basically said, "Look, she's exhausted, she's hormonal. She feels like you don't care. Can't you just let us sit in the back with the baby? We'll leave if he makes a peep." I told him the same thing I told her. If I make an exception for them, I can't tell other people no. He sighed and said, "Well, I hope you know you're losing a friend over this." That one hurt. Then word started spreading in our friend group. One of our mutual friends, Jessica, texted me asking why I was being so rigid. Another, Tyler, told me he thought Emily was being unfair and that this was her way of making the wedding about her. So now I've got this weird split among people I've known for years. Some siding with her, some with me. To make things even messier, Brian's mom got wind of the drama. She called me last weekend and said, "Honey, I get why you don't want kids there, but a tiny newborn is different. They're not running around, and Emily is like family to you. Is it worth losing her over this?" I respect Brian's mom a lot, but that threw me for a loop. I asked her how she'd feel if one of Brian's cousins brought their toddler then, and she immediately said, "Well, that's not the same." That's exactly my problem. Everyone thinks their kid is the exception. The cherry on top? Emily posted this vague Facebook status about finding out who your real friends are when you become a mom. I didn't comment, but several people who know both of us reached out to ask what happened. I didn't want to air dirty laundry, so I just said, "We had a disagreement about wedding logistics." Now I feel like the villain in a story she's telling to everyone else. Brian's been my rock. He keeps reminding me this is our day, not Emily's, not anyone else's. But I'd be lying if I said it doesn't make me sad. When I pictured walking down the aisle, I always pictured Emily standing there in the front row, crying happy tears for me. Now I have to accept that she might not be there at all. The wedding is about 6 weeks away, and at this point I think I have to make peace with the fact that she's not coming. I'm not going to chase her. I already extended olive branches, hotel room, sitter, paid help. She rejected all of it. If she chooses to miss the day, that's her decision. Do I feel good about it? No. But I also don't feel like I should bend over backwards and compromise what Brian and I want for the sake of one person who gave me an ultimatum. I guess the real update is that I've stopped seeing it as my fault. It's heartbreaking, but I can't control her choices. All I can do is stick with mine. Final update, the wedding has come and gone, and I wanted to come back with closure since so many people were invested. Buckle up, because it turned out even more dramatic than I expected. First, the big question. No, Emily did not come. She never RSVP'd formally after our fight, and a week before the wedding, I got a short text from her saying, "I love you, but I can't be there if my son isn't welcome. I hope someday you'll understand." That was it. No, good luck. No, congratulations, just that. I cried. I'm not going to lie. For days leading up to the wedding, I kept hoping she'd show up anyway, that maybe she'd walk in last minute without the baby just to surprise me and prove our friendship mattered. But she didn't. On the day itself, I thought I'd be too distracted to notice, but the absence hit me. When I walked down the aisle, I couldn't help but glance at the row where I thought she'd be sitting. It was empty. It stung. But here's the thing, once the ceremony got going, once I saw Brian waiting at the end of the aisle, everything else faded away. The day was beautiful. No screaming toddlers, no fussing babies, no interruptions. People danced, laughed, stayed out late, and honestly had the time of their lives. Multiple guests even told us they appreciated the child-free rule because it gave them a rare chance to just be adults. I kept remembering why Brian, and I stuck to our guns. The whole vibe of the wedding was exactly what we wanted. Joyful, carefree, and focused on celebrating. Of course, not everything was perfect. The drama spilled into the event in little ways. Brian's mom kept making small comments like, "I still think it was a shame Emily couldn't come." One of my bridesmaids, Jessica, pulled me aside during the reception and said, "I hope you don't regret losing her over this." I didn't argue with them. I just smiled and said, "I don't regret our decision." And I meant it, because the flip side is, other people noticed too. Brian's cousin actually thanked me. She said, "I know you stuck to the no kids rule even when it was hard, and it made me respect you more. I would have felt really disrespected if you bent it for someone else. That reminded me exactly why I couldn't cave. After the wedding, I reached out to Emily one last time. I sent her some professional photos, told her I missed her, and said the door was always open if she wanted to talk. She replied the next day with, "I'm glad you had a nice wedding. I just wish you'd understood how impossible it was for me. Right now, I need friends who get what it's like to be a new mom. I don't think we're in the same place anymore. So, that's it." 15 years of friendship ended not with a bang, but with a quiet text message. I've cried about it, but I've also realized something. Friendships can end, and sometimes it's not because either person is terrible. She's in a new chapter of her life, and I'm in mine. Our priorities just don't line up anymore. That doesn't erase all the good years we had, but it does mean I need to accept the reality. Brian and I are happy. We got the wedding we dreamed of. We're starting our marriage on the same page, and that's what matters most. Do I wish Emily had been there? Absolutely. Do I regret standing my ground? No. Because I learned something. If a boundary makes someone walk away, maybe the friendship wasn't as solid as I thought. So, final verdict. The wedding was everything I wanted, even if the guest list wasn't. Stories. Number 11. My sister wants me to pay her half of the mom's medical bills after she blew thousands on a luxury vacation. This whole thing has turned into a family headache that I did not see coming. For context, my mom, Linda 62F, is a widow. My dad passed away about 10 years ago, and ever since, it's really just been me and my sister, Rachel 34F, looking out for her. Mom is not terrible with money, but she's always lived paycheck to paycheck, and she's never had savings built up. She works part-time at a grocery store just to stay busy. But there's no retirement nest egg, no cushion. A couple of months ago, Mom had to have surgery. It wasn't elective. It came out of nowhere, and it wasn't something she could have put off. Thankfully, she's okay now and recovering. Insurance covered the bulk of it, but the hospital bills left her with about $6,000 still owed. For Mom, that's impossible. For us, it's not ideal, but doable. Rachel and I had a phone call about it. I remember it clearly because I was sitting in my car outside work when she said, "We'll just split it down the middle, right? $3,000 each. Mom doesn't have to stress." And I agreed immediately. She's my mom. She raised us, of course I'll help. $3,000 isn't nothing, but it's manageable if I tighten my budget. Fast forward 2 weeks. I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I see Rachel posting photos of herself in Italy. Not just some budget trip either. Fancy dinners, designer shopping, boat rides, wine tastings, the whole deal. She's tagging places in Florence, Rome, Amalfi. She's in pictures holding Aperol spritzes in front of ocean views. She's staying at hotels that I know are not cheap. My first reaction was, good for her, she's living her best life. But then it hit me. Wait, we literally just agreed to split Mom's bill. That $3,000 is still hanging over us, and she's out there spending what looks like double that on vacation. When she got back, I called her. I said, "Hey, so I'm ready to start making payments on Mom's bill. When are you sending your half?" She immediately sighed, like I was burdening her, and said, "Yeah, about that. I don't have the cash right now. Things are tight after the trip." I couldn't even believe she said it so casually. I told her, "Rachel, you just went to Italy for 10 days. If you had money for a luxury vacation, you have money to help Mom. You promised." She got defensive right away. Vacations are different. I saved up for that for months. I'm not going to punish myself by canceling it just because Mom got sick. You're better with money than I am, so you should just cover it and I'll pay you back when I can. That made me angry. I told her, absolutely not. This isn't about me being better with money. This is about priorities. You put a vacation over helping Mom. That's not fair. She snapped back. You're being heartless. Mom needs the money now, and you're making her wait just to prove a point. Stop using money to punish me. That's when I lost my patience. I told her she was being selfish, and if she can afford luxury trips, she can afford to do her part. She hung up on me. Now here's the kicker. Mom hates conflict. She won't take sides. She told me, "Sweetheart, I don't want you and Rachel fighting over me. I'll work something out with the hospital." but I can tell she's stressed, and she shouldn't have to be. I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I'm not refusing to help. I'm covering my half, no problem. But I don't see why I should also cover Rachel's half just because she decided Aperol spritzes and shopping sprees were more important. If I did pay it, I honestly don't think she'd ever pay me back, and I'd just end up resentful. Of course, Rachel is painting me as the bad guy. She told a couple of our cousins that I'm letting Mom drown in medical debt because I'm obsessed with money. One cousin even texted me to say, "Can't you just front the money? Mom's health is more important than your pride." That really stung, because this isn't about pride, at least not for me. It's about fairness. Rachel made a commitment, and she bailed. Meanwhile, I'm the one being called selfish. So here I am, wondering if I'm missing something. Should I just eat the extra $3,000 to keep the peace? Or should I hold firm and let Rachel face the reality of her choices, even if that means Mom has to stress longer about the bill? Because right now, it feels like I'm stuck between being heartless to my sister or unfair to myself, and I can't tell if I'm doing the right thing or just letting my anger cloud my judgment. Update. Thanks to everyone who weighed in. Reading the responses gave me clarity, though I'll admit, some of the harsher ones stung a little. A lot of you said what I needed to hear. If Rachel can afford luxury vacations, she can afford to help Mom, and if she doesn't step up, then she has to deal with the consequences. So here's what's happened since my original post. After our fight, I decided to go ahead and pay my half of the bill directly to the hospital. I didn't want Mom sitting around stressed, waiting for me to take action. That covered $3,000, but there was still Rachel's share hanging in the balance. I texted Rachel a screenshot of the receipt and said, "I paid my half. The rest is on you. Please don't leave Mom hanging." She left me on read. About a week later, Mom called me sounding flustered. She said, "Honey, the hospital called me. They want to set up a payment plan for the remaining balance." I don't know what to tell them. I asked if Rachel had paid anything yet, and Mom said, "No, she told me she just can't right now." That lit a fire under me. I called Rachel, and she actually answered this time. I said, "Mom just told me the hospital is calling her about the balance. Why haven't you paid your part?" Her response? "I told you I don't have it right now. I'll get around to it when I can. I'm still catching up after Italy." I asked, "So you think it's fair that Mom, who has no money, is the one fielding collection calls while you sit around waiting to get around to it?" She snapped back, "Don't you dare guilt trip me. I've had a rough year too, and I deserved that vacation. Just because you're uptight with money doesn't mean I should be punished for living my life." At that point I said, "Rachel, this isn't about you living your life. This is about Mom. You promised her and me you'd split this. She shouldn't be punished because you blew your savings on wine and gelato." She hung up again. Here's where it got even messier. We had a family barbecue last weekend at our cousin Michael's house. I wasn't going to bring it up in front of everyone, but Rachel clearly had a different plan. She showed up, immediately started telling anyone who would listen that I refused to help Mom and that she was forced to deal with everything alone. I finally pulled her aside and said, "You need to stop lying. I paid my half. You haven't paid a dime. You're making Mom deal with calls she shouldn't have to answer." Rachel got loud. She said, "You just want to make me look bad. Everyone knows you make more money than me. You could easily cover this whole bill without even blinking. You're letting your ego get in the way of helping Mom." Everyone was staring at us at that point, so I said in front of the whole family, "I paid $3,000 already. Ask Mom. Rachel hasn't paid anything because she blew her money on Italy." That's the truth. The silence was brutal. Mom looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Finally, Michael said, "If that's true, then Rachel, that's not okay." Rachel stormed out. Later, I got a barrage of texts from her saying I embarrassed her and ruined the family barbecue. She said, "Mom is stressed because you keep making her medical bills into a drama fest." I didn't even respond. Since then, Mom has been begging me to just let it go because she hates the fighting. She said Rachel promised she'd start making small payments soon. But knowing Rachel, I'll believe it when I see it. At this point, I've decided I'm done chasing her. I'm not covering her half, and I'm not going to keep fighting about it. If she wants to let debt collectors hound Mom, that's on her conscience. But here's the sad part. I don't even feel like I have a sister right now. Every time I think about her sipping cocktails in Italy while Mom worries about bills, I just get angry all over again. So the update is, I paid what I owed. Rachel hasn't, and now the family knows the truth. Whether she ever steps up is anyone's guess, but I'm done being the villain in her story. Final update. It's been a few months since my last post, and I figured I'd give one last update since a lot of people asked how things turned out. So, short version. Rachel still hasn't paid her half of the bill, and I don't think she ever will. After the barbecue blow-up, things were tense for weeks. Mom kept trying to play peacekeeper, telling me things like, Rachel just needs time, and she'll come around eventually. But the bills weren't waiting around. The hospital called again, and Mom finally set up a payment plan for the $3,000 balance. That means she's paying $100 a month until it's done. For her, that's a lot. I offered to cover the payment plan just to get the collectors off her back, but Mom said no. She told me, if Rachel won't help, then this is my responsibility, not yours. I think she was embarrassed and didn't want me carrying more than my share. As for Rachel, she's doubled down. We haven't spoken in almost 2 months. The last message I got from her was basically a rant. You've turned everyone against me. You care more about money than family. I'll remember how you treated me when you need something one day. She's unfollowed me on Instagram, stopped replying in our family group chat, and even skipped Thanksgiving. Mom tries to defend her by saying she's ashamed or feels attacked, but I think she's just refusing to face reality. Our cousins definitely saw through it. A few of them reached out to me privately to say, I did the right thing and Rachel embarrassed herself. But that doesn't change the fact that my relationship with her is basically gone. Here's the thing though, I don't regret standing my ground. If I'd paid her half, it would have just taught her that she can blow money on herself and expect me to clean up after her. I love my mom, and I'll always help her, but I'm done enabling Rachel. It hurts because she's my sister, and I wish she was the kind of person I could rely on. But sometimes family isn't who you want them to be. Sometimes they show you exactly who they are. So the final outcome is this. Mom is okay, slowly paying off her part. I paid mine in full. Rachel walked away from the responsibility, and maybe from the relationship too. I can live with that, because at the end of the day, I'd rather be called heartless than be taken advantage of. Stories number 12. A friend has a stranger living in her house that she's not aware of, and I don't know what to do. I, 28F, have 2 friends, Mia and Kat from college. I'm best friends with Mia, but I'm also very close with Kat. They rent an apartment. Together close to their job, Mia lives there full-time, but Kat only sleeps there 1-2 nights a week when she has to go to the office. Another important thing about them is that Kat is your typical type A friend, and kinda nerdy and shy, while Mia is more of the party type, more carefree and extroverted, but somehow they have made it work for 2 years. I've noticed that Mia had been acting differently for the past year, and I only found out yesterday that it was because she has been dating this guy Sam for more than a year, and that Sam has been living in the house since May, and Kat has no idea. Apparently he lost his job and apartment and has been so sunken in his depression to get a new one, so for the last months has been living with free rent, food and utilities in their place. Mia told me that he just keeps hidden in her bedroom when Kat is at home, but the rest of the time he spends all day smoking weed, because when he doesn't smoke, he cries all day because he's depressed and playing video games while she's at work. I was in absolute shock. I couldn't imagine having a stranger living in my house without me knowing. I would feel incredibly unsafe. I feel like I need to tell Kat, but Mia is going to know I snitched on her, and everything is going to go to hell, because Kat would be capable of kicking Mia out, and she has nowhere to go. She's foreign, no family in this country. I don't know what to do and would appreciate some advice. Edit for clarity. I'm not a native English speaker and we don't live in America. Update. I just texted Kat that I needed to talk to her and to let me know when I could call her. It's currently midnight, so we will probably talk tomorrow. Update 2. Kat called me and I told her that I suspected Mia was having her boyfriend sleep over sometimes. She told me she has been suspecting for months. mostly due to noises in the apartment and conversation with neighbors, but never had the proof to confront Mia. They have a basement in the apartment complex, and the keys of their space had gone missing, and she suspects maybe his stuff might be in there. She's going to ask for a copy and check the basement for proof, and see if she can confront her. Thanks everyone for the advice.